Good evening and welcome to Business at Prime. Well, we start here this evening. The South African Airways airline has made further strides this week, just days after taking back to the skies, announcing that it will take off to the rest of the continent, starting in Ghana, followed by Congo, Zimbabwe, Mozambique and Zambia. The airline has also reinstated partnership agreements with Emirates Airlines, which signals a return to normality for the carrier. Joining us is Interim Executive for Commercial Operations, Simon Newton-Smith. Simon, thank you very much for joining us. You have worked around the world, including being VP at Virgin Atlantic in North America and, Qatar Airways as well. You've seen airlines being grounded and also take off again. Let's take a stock of the past week. How confident are you that, the operations in the past week since you took off are going to, make SAA stay in the skies?
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me join you. Very excited about the first week of operations. We started Cape Town flights on the 23rd of September, had a really positive weekend. We're talking load factors just under 80%. And as we got into this week, we've launched, as you quite rightly said, services into regional Africa. Certainly the early indicators are really positive. We are building up our loads as we anticipated in the early stages, but very much on track for the load factors that we'd anticipated. So feeling very confident indeed.
Simon, you've also made sure that you sign partnership agreements with, Emirates Airlines. We saw those falling away. Does this signal that we are going to see international flights coming back into the fold anytime soon?
Listen, we're taking a very cautious approach to expanding the network, and we've said this all along. Launching an airline is tough at the best of times. Relaunching an airline, especially in the middle of COVID, is really tough. We've got markets that are down, 60% versus 2019. So we're going to be very much driven by where we can see demand emerging. So it's too early to say exactly when we will be launching certain destinations, longer haul flights. We will be very much driven by market demand and the data. But you're right, we re-signed a very important code-share agreement with Emirates this week. We also signed a really important memorandum of cooperation with Kenya Airways. The reality is the world has changed. Success in the future will be via partnerships. So to have Emirates and Kenya already signed in the first few days is, again, really encouraging.
Simon, the first time you joined SAA was some 20 years ago. The air travel has changed tremendously, caused by changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. You've seen those changes. What are the biggest challenges facing air travel today, particularly for airlines that are trying to restart just like SAA?
Clearly, the biggest challenge is literally the size of the market. So, clearly there are fewer people traveling right now. Some of that is driven by the complexities of crossing borders. But the good news is that we're starting to see some change in how countries are responding to travelers and tourism from other countries. South Africa, credit to South Africa, we've made it very easy for people to come to this country, purely a PCR test. Hasn't always been that easy getting into other countries, but as the vaccination rates grow around the world, the movement is more towards, how individuals are vaccinated versus how countries are vaccinating. So clearly, the size of the market, the complexity for travel is probably the single largest factors impacting demand right now. But there is nothing on the scale that we've seen as the impact of COVID on this industry and on customer demand.
What do these partnership agreements that you've signed already mean for local travelers and SAA? What are we getting as travelers when you sign these agreements? What do they mean to us?
Well, every single agreement typically includes provision for reciprocal frequent flyer programs. So when you are traveling on the likes of Emirates, then for all of the Voyager members, the South African Airways frequent flyer program, then they get to earn miles when they're traveling on other carriers. So it opens up a far broader network that we can fly ourselves. With Kenya Airways, it's a really interesting agreement because potentially there is the opportunity to build joint networks down the line and really improve the connectivity across the region. You know, going back to what you just said, I first joined South African Airways back in 2000, and one of the issues then was the challenges for people from all over the world getting across Africa. Getting to the continent is easy enough, but actually traveling within the continent is still one of the biggest challenges. So it was a challenge back in 2000, it's still a challenge now, and it's going to be how South African Airways and other African carriers partner that will help make travel easier across the continent. So the biggest plus for South Africans is over time being able to get around this continent much easier than has been the case so far.
Let's talk about something that the president of the country also spoke about last night, the UK red list, South Africa being on that list. What does it mean for operators like yourself? Should South Africa be removed from that red list? And what would it mean should South Africa stay on that red list? I know you are still locally, based, with the SADC region flights resuming. But what would it mean for us to be, removed from that list, and for you as well?
So the UK is the single largest international market for South African tourism. It's a highly trafficked route. So even though we might not initially be flying the London service, certainly over the next few weeks and months, what it will mean is more people flowing into South Africa, taking connecting flights. And just as we were talking about, we have partnerships with other airlines, so we would absolutely benefit, as in South African Airways. But most importantly, the country of South Africa would benefit. Tourism is such a huge contributor to the South African economy that any and every market that is opening and allowing travellers access to the country is great for business, it's great for tourism, and it's great for connecting passengers onto South African Airways.
Simon, before I let you go, I want to put you on the spot here. How soon can we see, an announcement on this strategic equity partner, since you already are in the air? What is left to iron out before the deal goes through?
So I haven't been close to the day-to-day discussions with the strategic equity partner, but I think based on what many of your viewers will have read and seen, fundamentally that process is complete. My understanding is there's no significant findings, but this is now the process of getting the underlying transaction right. And inevitably, getting things right takes a little bit longer, and as much as we all want speed here, getting things right is the most important thing. So I can't give you a time, I can't give you a date, but I know that discussion is progressing very well.
Simon Newton-Smith, the SAA Interim Commercial Operations Executive, telling us that the SAA takeoff we saw last week has gone better than expected. Thank you very much for your time.